Hey everybody, this is Perch. I'm out walking the dog. A little bit of traffic in the distance. It's hot Wyoming air on the way home. The sun was red as hell, smoke everywhere. So it's not very pleasant to be outside. But I got here from kind of a weird place. I've been catching up on some comics. I read the latest Children of the Atom #6, and for a brief period, I thought I should review this comic. But then you ever have this thing where it's not, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything about it at all. It's just, I'd be beating a dead horse with aspects of this comic. This comic manages to cram in cultural appropriation toward mute. I mean, it's just, it reads like a lecture, but not a lecture that matters or that helps anyone. Not a lesson that you particularly need. It's kind of like if right now, in 2021, somebody came out and did a movie about not starting forest fires. It's like, we've heard it, we got bored of it, and then for some reason we came back and we got some more. It was a painful thing. But I was looking back at some of the interviews around some of the X-Men titles, because in certain cases, I feel like the X-Men books have gotten themselves into a trap. And one of the reasons why they got themselves into a trap is because they kind of leaned into this idea of big, high concept ideas, which when Hickman originally said this, everybody got very excited. Oh, big concept ideas from Hickman. How could that possibly go wrong? And then you see the ultimate conclusion of that, which is in Children of the Atom, one of the first villains that the kids pretending to be mutants faced was the Hell's Bells team from, I think it was Peter David's old X Factor run, where these characters came from. So if somebody dug them out, like, let's go for some nostalgia, they put them in there. The Hell's Bells are jerks. They get their asses handed to them. The X-Men step in, and everybody's upset at these villains doing villainous things, threatening human lives. And then in the last issue of Children of the Atom, #6, we get this long sequence where one of the kids, who turned out to actually be a mutant, it is actually an amazing comic where they cram in "Will my parents accept me?", some LGBTQ stuff where the girl that she was crushing on didn't like her, but then it turns out she does like her, and everything works out great. Even my dog is bored at this point. He's just like, he's chewing the side of my shorts and just like hitting me with his head. Like, stop talking about this. What are you doing? Anyway, in this Hellfire Gala sequence, which again, it has the misfortune of coming out, a month after the Hellfire Gala ended. So even that bit feels like it's a retread, which is just the problem with this whole book. But in it, she's hanging, this one kid who discovers she actually is a mutant is hanging around the Hellfire Gala, and who's there? The Hell's Bells are there, and they're kind of bullying. They're invited, they're present, they're part of the mutant family, but they're bullying the new mutant, and you do kind of wonder, hey, wait a minute, these characters were doing villainous things, attacking humans, which is one of the big laws against, and then you're showing it takes the high concept idea of a mutant island and kind of a different status quo, and just makes it ridiculous. But enough of X-Men, because I think there's a series that is doing this even more egregiously right now, and it's all this is doing is making me physically reject whenever I hear the big concept ideas, or when creators excitedly tell you, I can't believe they're letting me get away with this. It's like, hey, they shouldn't. Yeah, that's a clue. The editor should step in and say, you don't get to get away with this. That's stupid. Stop. But the series that really feels like it's almost a dare to see how much ridiculousness you can get away with is Jason Aaron's Avengers. Now, Jason Aaron, I think, has done some pretty amazing independent comics, legitimately amazing. You can read them; they're still good. I recently pulled out, what was it, Southern Bastards, and it's a good comic. It's like, yeah, I enjoy this. I liked his Thor run. There were problems in it for sure, but that Gore the Butcher storyline, excellent. And I'm one of the people who thought that the initial Jane Foster's Thor storyline was different. It put some stuff on its ear, and I'm on board. It was something legitimately new. It was high concept, new, and it was all right. I mean, there are some eye rolling bits, sure, but generally, I'm for it. But the Avengers, Um, the problem with it is, it's a little bit like what they've done with the movies. There's a lot of tell and not show, and the tell is this constant. These are the Earth's mightiest heroes, but they're not. I mean, they're in adventures and they're doing things that clearly are not portraying them as Earth's mightiest heroes. It's absurd. They live in a hollowed out skeleton of a celestial in a mountain somewhere, and it bears no connection to anything. I mean, you look at some of the classic Avengers stories, or Avengers in New York, they're dealing with the UN and all the rest. Now they're dealing in a celestial, hollowed out body in a snowy mountain somewhere. And there's a vampire country now that has sovereignty for some reason. There was the whole Heroes Reborn thing with Squadron Supreme. Coulson's running a demonic version of the Avengers. I mean, the whole Ghost Rider sequence, and then the Moon Knight bit where parts of New York just randomly turn into Egypt. There's aspects to that it's no longer a spectacle. It's just stupid. And the problem is when you put a lot of stupid there, and it's like, hey, look, we've got Gru living in the, is it Gru? The little brood kid, the scientist. We've got Gorilla Man there, and he's a double agent. We've got, there's just aspects of this series that are absurd. And when you do too much of that high spectacle, and then you have the heroes almost become kind of a backdrop to the whole thing. Like, when you've got Captain America and Tony hanging out in a hot tub in the deceased corpse of a Celestial, at some point, it no longer feels like they're having amazing adventures anymore. It feels like, what's the most ridiculous thing we can put on the page? We'll try this. And that's what they go for. And I think that's the problem with high concept. High concept doesn't mean good story. And I think that my dog's still Luffy is just pissed. It's like, this video sucks. Well, him and Mumbles. Wait a minute. Maybe Mumbles is my dog. Anyway, I think that you can't do high concept. You have to have story. I think story, and then making the story better by doing bigger and better. Can you beat these things? The problem is, we've now seen from the Comic-Con online, the talk with the X-Men office. We've seen interviews with Aaron. We saw it a little bit. We saw it with Snyder's Justice League, where it was like, we're going to do amazing. It's going to be so off the wall. You're not even going to believe the crazy things we're going to get away with. It's like, I don't want you to get away with those things. That's not a selling point anymore. That's just code for, this title is going to be absurd, and it's going to make very little sense. And the stakes are going to be so silly that you don't really even care about the outcome. And that's the problem with the Avengers. They've hopped from one ludicrous plot to another, and at this point, who cares? And who wants to admit that, right? The best stories, if you think about it, the ones we remember for decades and decades, are not the most balls out insane thing ever. It's, there was a strong story. There was a strong thread. There was a strong, threat. And the character had to rise to the occasion, had some deep character moments, maybe fell and then worked their way back up again. Look at the people who praise Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. There was no balls insane thing going on there. There wasn't I can't believe they're letting me get away with this. There's just a solid story. At the end of the day, that's what's going to deliver a comic, is a solid story. And solid art, don't get me wrong, but it has to be delivered in a way that's going to really provide something powerful and not play a game of, can you top this? And, too many of the comics these days really feel like they're the result of a drinking game that somebody had at a Comic-Con, where it was like, let's see if we can get this by the editors. And I think the let's see if we can get this by the editors has become code for, this is going to suck. Now, granted, I don't think the editors are doing so. I think, frankly, I've been in some of those conversations where the editor's like, yeah, why stop there? Let's go ahead and have the characters playing Dungeons and Dragons at the same time. And while they're doing that, there'll be a space monster, but it's not really a monster; it's a zombie, because enough. Tell a good story. Stop trying to make it ludicrous. Just tell a solid story. All right, my dog is thoroughly bored. He wants to go in. Come on. All right. He can't say anything, otherwise I'd have him bark for you. Thanks for listening.